Today's applet is about how to use the mouse. So most 2D games are played using the mouse or the keyboard to control the sprite's action. In this tutorial, you will learn how to use the mouse. In later tutorials, I will teach you about animation, and then you can combine your learnings to move the characters on your screen using either the mouse or the keyboard. So as a refresher, you need to know the coordinate system on the Java screen. So remember, each point on your screen has a coordinate number or pixel number, and in order to move or draw images or text on your screen, you need to know the exact coordinate. So when you run an applet, you can find out the exact location of the mouse on the screen. So whenever I click someplace on the screen, I can find out the exact pixel that the user has clicked on. I can then use that information to draw a sprite at that location, or to draw some text at that location, or to do collision detection. So when the user uses the mouse, she can do a number of different things. She can right click, she can left click, she can drag, she can click and release. And with each of these actions, I can respond to those actions and write code. So for example, if the user right clicks, I can write code to move my character or to move my sprite image to the right. So I've provided you some code called mouse example 1. You can download this applet, compile it, and run it and see what it does. I'm going to step you through this specific applet so you know exactly what's going on. So with this applet, when I run it, it will draw a red square at the location where I click on my screen. So in order to draw a red square, I need to know the specific location that the user has clicked on. I need to know the mouse and XY coordinates that is currently where the mouse is located. My red square is going to be 40 pixels by 40 pixels. So as a review, these are the two commands that I will use to draw my red square. The first is I set the color using color.red, and then I use the fill rect command to draw my red square. I will draw the red square at X location and Y location, which are both integers, and then I will set the height and the width to 40 pixels each. So here is the code. You will notice that there's few new lines in this code. The first thing is the import java.awt.event, and the second thing is the implements mouse listener and mouse motion listener. You will add these lines exactly as shown to your applet. They will help you respond to the mouse movement on your screen. The next thing that I have done is I have set up two variables. I've created a variable called mousex and a mousey, and I've set their starting location to 100. I will later use these two variables to draw my red rectangle or my red square on my screen. All right, the init section. You should be familiar with the init section. You know that it gets run once at the start of your program. In this case, I'm setting my background color to black, and then I have two new lines of code, add mouse listener and add mouse motion listener. Both of these lines of code you will type in exactly as shown and make no changes. Again, they will let Java know that your applet is using the mouse. Here is a new section. It's called mouse released. So whenever the user clicks and releases her mouse button, this section of code gets run. So it'll get run multiple times depending on how many times the user releases the mouse button. So in this section of code, the first thing that I am doing is getting the current location where the user has clicked. I'm using e.getX and e.getY. I stored those two integers in my variables that I'd created earlier, the mousex and the mousey variables. So basically, whenever the user clicks anywhere on the screen, I grab the location of her x coordinate and the y coordinate, and I store that information in mousex and mousey. Next, I call my repaint method or the paint method. The paint method will actually paint the red square on my screen. In this case, you don't need to change any lines of code. You just type in repaint and e.consume. So just to review, when the user clicks on the screen, this section of code gets run, the mouse release section. I get the coordinates of the mouse location, and then I call my paint section to paint the square on my screen. As I mentioned earlier, the user can do a number of different things with the mouse. She can drag the mouse, she can left click the mouse, etc. In my applet, I do not want to respond to any of these events. So I basically coded these specific sections as do nothing. You still need to have these sections in your code, but in my case, they're all empty and Java will ignore these particular events. But you still need to type them in exactly as shown. In other applets, you may want to respond to the mouse released or the mouse dragged. You may want to do something with your sprite when the user drags or releases the mouse. In my final section, the paint section, I actually draw the red square on my screen. So the first thing I need to do is grab the red color pen using the g.set color. Then I draw my rectangle on my screen using the mouse X and the mouse Y variables. So remember, I got that information from mouse X and mouse Y from my mouse released method. And the size of my square is 40 pixels by 40 pixels. The last thing that I do just for error checking is to do a print statement. This print statement will appear on your Java console. So if you have a look at my example, it's printing out the mouse is at X100 and the Y100. When I click and release again, it says my mouse is at 280 and the Y is at 192. So what I want you to do is download the code, try it out, read through the lines of code, and then go back to this specific video and see if you can make sense of each of the specific sections.